Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another great episode of Basscast Radio. I am your host, Brian Carter. Welcome to the show tonight. Guys, in the house, we got a special guest with us. We got Bassmaster Open Clarksville winner, Mr. Chase Clark. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you so much for having me. You've got a great program, and I'm excited to be on it tonight.
All right, got Thomas Fish in the DMV up there in the left corner. Bass Geek is not with us tonight. You guys all know last weekend we were all down in Tennessee. Me and Danielle and Jacob and all of us were there, and it was a great show as always. And you couldn't beat the people off of Geek down there. I'm not lying. That's Geek's home territory. All territory. That's all Geek's fans and friends and neighbors and you name it. Anybody in the fishing industry that loves Hank was there. So it's a great show as always. We're hoping to get Thomas down there eventually in the future. But before we get started tonight, guys, don't forget, check out our Patreon. Patreon members get free access, early access to the show, commercial-free access as well. So if you don't like commercials, then sign up for our Patreon. And we had a special deal running in January. I might wait until March to run it again. I don't know. We'll see. But become a member of our Patreon. Also, Discount Tackle. They are affiliate of ours. And for you guys who love buying tackle and love saving money, Discount Tackle is where you need to go. All this information will be in the description under this video on the podcast version as well as YouTube version as well. So make sure you guys check that out. Tournament season starts here, guys. We had kicked off last weekend. We had the first Cat Bass Kings event on Smith Mountain Lake. I think it took about 22 pounds to win that. Congratulations. And this weekend, which will be already past because we upload on Mondays, guys, is the first Cat Smith Mountain Lake event. Season is rolling already. And me and Thomas still have one more expo to go to, the Augusta County Expo, which will be this coming weekend. So we're excited about that. And Thomas, I know you're going to be doing your thing again. You've had you'll have 2 weekends off. So how you feeling?
So I had one lovely weekend off that I was not talking. Basically at Raleigh, I think I interviewed 18 hours of live content. We did 16 hours of live content at the Richmond Expo the weekend after that. So let's see, Dale City, February 1st. I'll be down there near Occoquan Reservoir. And then the next weekend I'm at Augusta County. The weekend after that, I'll be in West Virginia. And then the weekend after that, we're doing the kayak fishing show at Jake's. So this is no rest for the wicked here as we do this home stretch.
Yeah, I was asked today, was I going to the Jake's? And I'm going to have to look at my calendar again. I know English Choice fires up down in North Carolina the 15th and 16th or 14th, 15th, somewhere. Please go look at the basscast.com. There's a full calendar schedule there. If you guys want to know what's happening in the World Tournament Bass Fishing, it's at the basscast.com. And like I said, we have all the schedules there that you need to know. But I'll be on the road. So I'm home this weekend. Home last weekend. And on the road. Then on the road, and we ain't really looked at the rest of the schedule because we're probably pretty much going through April. So it's tournament season here at the basscast.com. So guys, we really appreciate you all checking in with us tonight. Again, Mr. Chase Clark with us. Thank you for being a part of the show. Before we dive into that, Thomas, you got anything you want to drop on us real quick here?
I'm just getting back into the roll of things now that we're through the first leg of our expo season, recording content. I've already recorded 2 shows today with some people. A guy that almost caught the state record crappie for Virginia. Damn thing was damn near 4 pounds, which was insane.
Wow.
So that was a fun episode that's going to be dropping later on. And then the guy who won because if you guys know Fishing DMV, I cover basically everything in our area. The guy that just won $20,000 in a catfish derby on Bugs Island. Holy crap. Didn't know there was that kind of money in catfishing. No idea until I saw him. He caught, I think it was a 60 pounder, and he said he broke off one that was over 100. So that was pretty cool. All that's coming in here in February as we get closer to the start of Bass Elite Series at the good old St. Johns River. And I guess that segues us right here to the Opens.
Yeah. And the this will already be over, but we got the first Major League Fishing Bass Pro Series going on. So, guys, it's fishing tournament season time. Yeah, guys who like swimming around in Bugs Island, 100-pound catfish are around you. That's some giant. I think Thomas, what do they have? I don't know if they have like 1 or 2 big catfish tournaments down there a year, if I remember correctly, like that. It's like big 20K pot. But that place is known for some giants, and I've seen a lot of photos of some big old catfish out of Bugs Island.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a new record broken out of there soon. I think there's a 150+ pounder easily. That place for some reason just pulls out some freaky freaks, which is probably why the bass fishing sucks among so many reasons with bugs.
Yeah, and guys, Thomas is telling the truth, because we actually brought that up on an episode we had, and talking about the reason why the fishing sucks at Bugs Island, and the catfish population, and how a lot of the bait fish are being eaten up, and even they're eating giant bass on top of that. So I mean, these catfish are huge. But guys, Mr. Chase Clark, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking a little time out of your night, man.
Thank you for having me. And on the topic of on those catfish, real quick, I know the James River is a pretty phenomenal cat fishery, but on the other hand, it's a pretty good bass fishery too. So I'm no marine biologist, but I don't know, maybe just the minerals and bugs, it needs herring. I know that, or more of them if it has them already. I've heard the spotted bass have started to get in bugs too, which that typically I've fished a lot of places all over the country, and lakes that don't have them, at least when I've been growing up, some of them have them. It's like Gaston as well. And same thing with some of the lakes down here in the South. Kind of like the one I just went to on Clark's Hill. It's changing, and it's changing because it's lost its grass, which I hear it used to be full of hydrilla.
Tons of SAV, yeah.
Mm.
Well, I
don't
a good
like
segue.
Yeah.
How did you go from, like, you're a Virginia boy that went down south? Like, what was your upbringing like around here, and how did that help you when you transitioned down south?
Yeah, so I grew up fishing the Bojangles Tournament Trail, and I fished a few Anglers Choices with my dad growing up. But I went to a high school in Virginia Beach, and it was called Cape Henry. Cape Henry Collegiate was the name of the high school I went to. And we didn't have a fishing team, and there's a bunch of them now that I've moved down here, a bunch of high school teams and stuff, but we didn't have that in the Virginia Beach area. And so we would fish just team tournaments together, and I did that throughout middle school and high school. And then once I became a senior, I started looking at colleges and where I might want to go to college at. And since Cape Henry was relatively a small school, I think we only had 95-ish to 100 kids in my graduating class there. I wanted to kind of see what else was out there, even though, I love that school and would do it all over again. I wanted to go to a bigger school, and I love college football, so I wanted to go to a school that had a good college football program. So my 3 choices came down to Auburn, Clemson, and South Carolina. And I ended up narrowing it down to Auburn based off of the campus, the community. I would say the football program, but we've been struggling a little bit recently. But I guess I can slide basketball in that place for that now. But yeah, it just came down to Auburn. It felt like home when I came down here and toured, especially I think it was my second tour. I was just like, yeah, this is where I want to go. And so I did the early admission. I think is what it is. It's been a little while now, but it's where you apply, and then if they say yes, then you're automatically in.
What year did you start down there, just for a time frame?
I started in 2018 at Auburn. That was my freshman year.
Okay, so you had some years then getting used to those bodies of water and kind of getting in the flow with that.
I did, and I never fished offshore before. We fished a bunch on the Pasquotank River and Gaston, and even the James River a little bit. And me and my dad just didn't fish offshore, and we found success on the bank and flipping and skipping and doing all the fun stuff, as I guess I would say now. So it was learning a whole new skill set for me. And then once LiveScope came out, it kind of helped me hone my skills out in the middle there with that technology as well.
I got to compete against Clemson University a lot in my years when FLW was still around and we had college fishing. And Clemson, it was really Lake Hartwell was kind of their home body of water. What was yours that you got to practice on and really cut your teeth to that style of fishing?
I would say Lake Eufaula and Lake Martin. More so Martin than Eufaula, though. Lake Martin is only about 45 minutes or 30 minutes to the closest boat ramp. And so that was a really convenient lake to just go after class. If you had a short day and we're over at noon or 1 o'clock, you could go out there later in the spring semesters when it didn't get dark until a little bit later. So that was a really convenient lake to go get a little bit of time in on the water during the week. And then on the weekends, we would go to Eufaula quite a bit, go fish them ledges, go punch some hyacinth, flip some reeds, whatever it might be, swim a jig. Didn't learn that technique really until I came down here because all these boys
really?
like to do it.
That's crazy. You didn't do that up on the James.
Down here.
Interesting.
Hey,
I thought you were going to go, Brian.
All right, pass it on. So let's talk about college first. I mean, how did college help get you prepared for this? I mean, I know we've had this conversation many times about all the college kids getting to see so many different bodies of water and, experience things that most anglers your age would never have been able to experience if it wasn't for college. But how much did the Auburn University College Fishing Club help prepare you for big events like this Bassmaster Open Win, man?
Yeah, so the Auburn team, it's really built off of family, and it's in the university's core values too. But because of that, and because there were so many of us on the team, we had to raise outside finances in order to be able to travel and stuff. And then also we would have to actually compete against each other a little bit throughout the year in order to get our gas money back. So it really kind of was a strong group of guys, and the competitiveness on top of the family aspect helped, I think, make all of us better fishermen. So we would travel to the events, and the team would pay the college events, the Bassmaster, the FLW. And I think right before I graduated, I got a little trophy up there from the Northern Conference, and it says MLF. So I guess when I graduated, it turned into MLF. From that one's Smith Mountain. But anyway, we'd travel, and the team would pay for our hotels wherever it was, Florida, Texas, Kentucky, wherever we were going. And then throughout the week, in order to keep everybody motivated, the deal was you had to beat your teammates essentially in order to get your gas paid for. So if the team was going to pay for your gas, you had to be within the top 3 to 6 teams who fished for Auburn that week for them to reimburse your gas too. So it was a lot of fun. And then you kind of it kept the competitiveness alive. Like, I'm going to beat you in Kentucky. My partner's from there, and or like St. Lawrence. My partner in college, my freshman year, was from Canada. So I'd never been to the St. Lawrence, didn't know anything about smallmouth fishing. So getting paired up with somebody like that was really cool.
Yeah, going to these, like you said, going to these many different bodies of water kind of really helped prepare you for the Opens. And what made you decide to dive into the Opens, man?
So I kind of wanted to do that my entire life. I've always watched the elite guys. And then another thing also with Auburn is Jordan Lee, right? So he was winning classics, I think, right before I was about to graduate high school. And I'm like, man, that really looks like there's a path there. And at the time, I didn't really know how hard it would be or the extent of that path. I just knew it was possible. And so that helped me a little bit decide on Auburn too. But once I got here, and then I had really, really talented fishermen and talented individuals on the team, both in front of me in grade class and below me in grade class, it kind of really helped push me. And watching guys like my friend Logan and Tucker Smith, a couple names y'all have probably heard of, go out there and do it. It's like, I mean, we're good friends, and we fished all the same places. I mean, there's no reason I can't do it also. And I learned a lot from those guys just on the sponsorship side of things, which you have to have in order to be able to go out and do it, because it is so expensive too. And then also on the fishing side of things too.
We didn't ask. We had a college coach on a couple of weeks ago. Never really asked this. Did they kind of prepare you guys for that sponsorship stuff, or did they, kind of? I know, like in pro football, they teach you how to manage your money and take care of things and become a good role model if you need to. They have all these classes, but in college, do they kind of, help you with getting sponsorship, social media? If you're kind of like a Jacob Fouts that don't like social media, you know what I'm saying? Is there plan that they kind of help you guys guide you on through your career?
Yeah, so one of the really cool things about Auburn, and it's going to be the same for like Alabama's fishing team, Georgia's fishing team, or those are our rivals. It's going to be the same for those guys, and then the same for Clemson guys. And if you think about those schools that I just listed, all of them have something in common, and that is that they're big schools. They're big D1 colleges. They're not like the smaller schools you hear a lot in the fishing world, like your Montevallos, your Adrians, your Bethels. So everybody who goes to a big school, it's considered a club sport. And because of that, it means it's totally student led. So we didn't have like a coach or anything like that. We elected our own executive board. Everybody on the team would vote and say, hey, we trust this guy to be our president, and then et cetera with the other members on the board. And then those board members would go to ICAST along with the help of a lot of the other team members. We'd get up kind of a game plan on who we would want to potentially partner with as a program, and then the executive board members would meet with the sponsors and then discuss it with the rest of the team as far as, do you guys think this is a good idea? Is this what we should do? Do you all want to throw these baits? Whatever it might be. Hey, they're going to pay for this many hotels, but we need 5 guys to go to their event. So a bunch of different things, and doing that really helped me learn a lot too.
Yeah, you guys all know fishing is so daggone expensive. We talk about it. Someone asked me to write a story about a boats, and I got an interview done. I got to put it together, but all this stuff is just ridiculous. And how many people, you said it was a whole lot on your team. How many anglers were you guys taking to each event?
Oh, man. So there was probably between boaters and co-anglers, probably around 68 to 69.
Holy cow.
And we would take anywhere between 12 and 15 teams at its prime when I was there. And I think those guys are still, I just saw them shout out Auburn fishing team. They just won the Harris Chain event down there, the basketball side of things. So they're still doing really good, and I try to keep up with a lot of them as I still got a few friends on the team.
It's so crazy how that many people. Go ahead, Thomas. I see you got a question.
I was going to say, like, once we're segueing, the Savannah River chain, it's so interesting to me. I've always said with professional fishing, if you dropped an alien here, they would say there's only 6 bodies of water, because unless the pros go there, places just don't get hype. And you look at the Savannah chain, and I remember when in FLW days, our championship was at Lake Kiwi. I don't think a lot of people know that lake, but you know about Hartwell. You know about, like, it's so crazy that we know about the Hartwell of the world. But if you actually zoom out, there's a lot of lakes on that chain, which is the one we're going to be talking about today. Why does this river produce so many banging lakes?
That's a good question. And I think it really comes down to just one thing, that you look at other similar river systems that you would think would be just as good, but they're not. And I think it's because of one thing, and that thing is herring. When it comes down to it, it's based off of forage, and everybody knows Hartwell, Clarks Hill. I've never been to Kiawe or Russell, but I'm pretty sure Russell has herring. And if I had to guess, I would say the other lake does as well.
Yeah, Russell's the other one that's just, I feel like, is lost. Like, I bet there's probably some good bags that come out of there, but it's just not talked about. And really, Clarks Hill, I feel like, got lost in the shuffle for 4 or 5 years, where opens weren't there, the elites weren't there. I remember when Davey Height did well there back in the day. You mentioned something that's interesting with the SAV, or the grass not being there. Was there grass when you were in college down there, or is that a newer thing where the grass is gone?
So I have never been to Clark's Hill before our tournament, actually.
Oh, wow.
So I that was one lake, like you said, everybody knows your Hartwells of the world. So MLF in college would take us to Hartwell.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you said they had the championship at Kiawe at one point.
Yeah.
But when I was in school, they only did Hartwell. We never did Russell or Kiawe or any of them, just Hartwell. So I never got to experience Clark's Hill. And looking back, I did a bunch of research before the tournament and stuff. I believe when Davey won, it did have a lot of grass in it. So at some point, I think some of the guys were saying that I was talking to when I was there, it kind of died off about 5 years ago. I think. I'm sure there's some guys out there who know a lot more
killed
about
it 5 years
correct
ago.
me on that, but
Did you have any preconceived notions because you have been on the chain before? You've had the Hartwell vibe beaten into you.
yeah, I mean, I pretty much. Well, first off, again, I think this is only my second ever tournament in January, like a true winter pattern tournament. I fished very little like that, and every time I've been to Hartwell, it's either been post spawn or in the fall. But I kind of knew how it's set up, so I kind of was just going to approach what I would do at Hartwell as far as where I would look the same, but just obviously look for the winter pattern instead of the fall pattern.
Mm.
You mentioned you had some magic brush piles.
Yeah, I did have one of those.
Let's talk about that because brush pile fishing is unique. We had a young man on a good call mid last year. The young man had like crushed it. I don't know how many pounds the guy had. It was huge.
And to add to what Brian said there, when your brush pile, if you think brush pile fishing is going to be the key, that generally means you're camping on your ass for many days, graphing. Did you have unlimited days going into this event? Did you have like, how did you break down taking that big lake and figuring out where to dial in your pattern?
So I went up in December and pre-practiced for a few days before it went off limits. And I didn't really know it's a huge lake. I think it's the size of Bugs and Gaston combined. I think it's like 74,000 acres or something like that. So that might not be quite those two lakes combined, but it's got to be close. So
it is 71,000 acres. Good God, that thing is massive.
But also you got to remember too, it's a drawdown lake like Bugs. So it could also be more or less than that too, depending on the water level when they took that number there.
So how do we find this magic brush pile, and how do we know it still reproduce a month later, 2 month and a half?
So I actually did not find that place in my pre-practice.
Okay.
So my pre-practice I spent entirely on the Savannah River arm, which is, I believe, the South Carolina side of that lake. I spent all of my time there from the dam all the way to the bridge. There's a big bridge. The lake kind of makes like a Y shape almost when you go upriver, where there's two big creek arms, and then there's a bridge about a mile above that. So that was kind of my boundary. I was like, I think I could break this down in the 3 days or whatever it was I spent there, and just find as much stuff offshore as I can, because I figured, January winter pattern, that's where I need to be looking.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't necessarily say, okay, I'm only going to look for brush, right? I wanted to look for rock piles and stumps, isolated stumps, brush, just anything that I thought could hold a fish. So I broke that section of the lake down. And then where the magic brush pile comes into play is the very first morning of official practice for our tournament. It was super foggy. It was like 60s, something like that. And the water temperature was 50 something. So it was super foggy. And I kind of got up a little bit later than I was supposed to, and turned out being okay because it was really, really foggy. I kind of took my time at the ramp, got at the ramp like 7:30 or something, went real slow, just kind of talking to guys. Put the boat in the water, blasted off around 8 o'clock or so, and then ran probably a few miles away from the ramp, and it just got too bad to where I couldn't see anything except my graphs, really. So I was just like, well, I'll just stop here. So I saw there was a little ditch that ran into a creek, and I idled up there, put my trolling motor down, and it wasn't 10 minutes after that I found that brush pile. Just literally couldn't go where I wanted to go because it was too foggy. So I just made a left turn and found the winning spot essentially.
That's a good story right there.
It's crazy to me that it was something Nolan Miner, who was a big kayak guy in our area, mentioned to me on my show so many years ago, which is when he went from college fishing, he fished the Opens, I think 1 year, and he went to kayaking. He said, like, what was crazy is once I had a kayak with scope, I realized how many fish are in a damn lake and how bad we are at catching them until you can like look around there. And that we drive all over God's earth. But then sometimes when we have these acts of God where it's like, I just need to just settle down and just start fishing, they're there the whole time.
I would have to agree with them. I think when we get caught up trying to run around and do all these different things, it's because you're looking for probably either stuff that you think is going to be sneaky, which if you fish the Opens, you quickly realize nothing is sneaky, or it's going to be super, super high percentage places instead of just going down the bank, which I think might be what he was talking a little bit about there.
Yeah, because with live scope being such a key tool now, and this is something that I started to do last year, is I'm not necessarily looking at a stump or a rock on my side scan. I'm using scope as quickly as I possible to identify what's set up there more efficiently. At least for me, it's almost like because technology's gotten so good, it doesn't matter if everyone can find the rock. It's now, are there fish? Is that something that you're doing more now with scope, and how scope plays into your practice?
So no, I'm still a really, really big side scan guy. I love using my side scan, and I lean on it a lot, especially when I'm pre-practicing, because I'll find something that I think that looks like a high percentage place. And that way, when I come back for the official tournament or official practice, I can just roll over there and then look. But I've noticed that if I put my trolling motor down and just go down the bank, I mean, even if it's a small lake, not to mention Clark's Hill, if you go down the bank and start panning around, and then you watch the time, you realize how quick it goes by when you're just on your trolling motor versus if you can idle stuff, which I still think is way more efficient.
So idle
pattern figured out.
Idle, scope it. Idle, and then back when you get closer to the tournament, then scope it. Not idle and then scope each spot, so to speak.
Yeah. Yep. So find a bunch of places, and then, depending on the weather, go over there and look at this, or go over there and look at that kind of thing.
Do you even have to make a cast when you're practicing like this? Is it just literally collecting as much data as possible, and then when you get closer, then kind of filtering through it?
Yes. Once you kind of get figured out and kind of get dialed in on what the fish are sitting on off there, then no, you really don't need to fish really. You just need to look once you kind of get keyed in on what you're searching for, or what you're looking for as far as how the fish are set up, especially like suspended fish. If I'm going in a ditch and I'm looking for suspending fish, then no, I don't need to throw at them. I need to just count them, because I know I can catch some of them if I'm throwing at them.
The quantity versus average catch limit.
No,
if they're on the bottom, if they're on tight on the bottom like they were for a lot of guys this week, then it is important to throw at them, because you want to see how many are there, how big they could be, if they're willing to bite. Because especially as each day went on, after probably really 10 o'clock is about when the morning bite would end. And so all those suspended fish you would see in the mornings would suck down into the bottom of the ditches, and they were almost invisible on live scope, to where you would throw at some rocks before you would actually throw at a group of fish. And then once you threw at them, it was like, whoa, they just kind of came up a little bit.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because so many times people online think it's just scope is a silver bullet. Up where I'm at in Maryland, when we're fishing smallmouth in some of our rivers and our reservoirs, they'll get behind boulders, and they're damn near invisible until you throw your drop shot, and then a 4-pounder just appears. And I don't care how much you dial it in, they can get that tight to the bottom where you can't see them unless something spooks them or pulls them off, which is fascinating with the technology they can still hide.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's definitely right. They can hide, and they can hide way better than we think.
Tell us a little bit about how you conquered that brush pile, brother. What was your techniques that you were using? And, we had another angler on a while back who's talking about, all brush piles are not the same. And, how some are a little bit dead or a there a very long time. I mean, was there fresh grass around the brush pile at all? How did you break this thing down?
So what it was a huge brush pile. I don't remember how tall it was. Maybe 8 feet tall or so, maybe 10 feet tall. And I think the key was, and what triggered me into realizing, or clued me into realizing how good it was, is that the fish were not actually in it. I did not catch one single fish in the brush itself. All the fish I was catching were next to it on one side or the other. So it was on kind of a real flat point like this, and then the point made like a sharp kind of, or not sharp, but about a 45-degree dip and went off into about 18 foot of water. Then there was a little bit of a plateau, and then it went off into the channel. So there was 10-yard stretch of just flat bottom at the bottom of that point. That's where the brush pile was. And the fish were on the break. Like right where that break was, the pile would be here, and then the incline would be over here. They were sitting right on the break next to it. I think they were there primarily because if they needed the brush, they could use it once the sun got up and stuff. Yeah. But when they were actively feeding in the morning, they weren't actually in it. They were just next to it.
What were you using to catch them, boys and girls?
So I was using primarily just a jig head minnow. I was throwing a greenfish tackle, bad little shad jig head, and depending on where the fish were set up in the water column, that would help me determine what size to throw. I would throw a 3/16, a quarter, a 3/8, and then just moving throughout the day, I would have a 1/2 ounce in my hand, just going from brush pile to rock pile or whatever it was, just in case I saw one swim by, just efficiency with that 1/2 ounce. And I didn't anticipate really catching that many largemouth, but since I caught a couple, well, I guess I really only caught one big one in practice. Because I caught one big one in practice, I wanted to go, a lot of guys will throw a 1/0 hook. Well, I was throwing a 3/0 hook, and it kind of looked like my bait was a little bit too small to throw that 3/0. And then in practice, I caught a 7-pounder on it.
Wow.
And then I was just like, there's no reason for me to go to a smaller hook if I can fool the biggest ones in the lake with a 3/0 hook compared to a 1/0 hook. So I just stuck with the 3/0 hook, and I think that really helped me land some of those big ones that maybe y'all saw me catch on live on that championship day.
On Bugs Island, we call those unicorns when you can connect with those green ones. For people that aren't aware, that don't live there, how unique is it when you get onto those green fish? Like the lights in your head just go off because it's like that is a big deal.
Yeah, so I knew when I caught that 7-pounder in practice that I needed to tuck that place away in my back pocket. And throughout the week, that fish came out of a group of 5. So after I caught it, there was 4 left. And throughout the week, I caught 2 more of them, and they were both over 6 pounds. I had no idea those fish would stay because I found them the first day, and then we had an off day and a cancellation day after our practice was over.
Mm-hmm.
And I found those fish the first hour of the first day. So I didn't really, going into the tournament, know what I was on, know that I would even have a chance to catch anything good. I thought if I could get 10 or 11 bites, I would have the opportunity at 13 to 16 pounds realistically. I really didn't anticipate 3 of them being over 6 and over half of them being over 5 pounds throughout the week. I did not see that coming at all.
I mean, it's got to be also a blessing of doing a winter tournament because, I mean, if this was in March, do you think that would have been there so many days in a row, or do you think they would have moved a lot more?
I think it depends on the weather. So if it was a warming trend, I think they would have moved for sure. If it was a cooling trend, they might have gone the other way.
But they would have done something.
They probably would have done something, especially if the moon was weird. There's no other way to say it other than just wow. I mean, it's just magical. They stayed there, and I was even able to catch them. I still can't believe it, really.
Mm.
Was that the brush pile? Was there a lot of bait fish around the brush pile, or was it moving water, or was there something that they were, like you said, they were just hanging around the brush pile themselves, but there's something that they were particularly staying there for feeding?
One of the things or reasons that I think that there was bigger fish in that area is because I never saw shad, right?
Okay.
And what I'm getting at there is the shad typically are chased by the spotted bass on the main lake, and they pretty much stay out there. Shad stay on the main lake or in the deeper places the whole time, and they're smaller. Threadfin shad are 2 to 3 inches, and I was catching much better quality, even though they were nearly impossible to fool. But I think it's really because the herring would push back in those ditches, and I just found one that the bass felt comfortable with their ambush locations and comfortable following them out to the shallow and then back to the deep, which was really not far. They didn't have to go far in that ditch to catch the herring in the evening and then to reposition for the rest of the day before or I guess while they were just being lazy, largemouth.
Did you have
Yeah.
the location to yourself pretty much? Go ahead, Thomas, over this one.
No.
I had one guy come in there fishing, and he is an incredible, incredible fisherman. But he was doing something different than I was. He was, I think he was cranking the ditch and moving real fast when I was just kind of taking my time looking for individual fish or groups of fish too.
Right.
Yeah, it's just interesting because I had a biologist on talking about blueback and what it does to the bass, and he said like you get three. You get your bluegill eaters that will never leave 6 inches of water. You'll get the ones that just become striper, and largemouth and spots will do it, and they act like them 100%. And then you get this weird hybrid that they become like regional. They'll just stay in a section and wait for stuff to come to them. And it sounds like they just camped out there because if they were just pure like striper chasers, man, they probably wouldn't have been there, which it's just interesting. Like, and then we're in a school like that. That is such a lottery ticket. So cool how that was. Like you catch one, it's like, okay, that's cool. But when you can keep going back there and just smoking it like that, it's when it's your time, it's your time.
I think that says it perfect. I guess it was just my time, and a lot of those guys were fishing on those pelagic fish like you were talking about, the ones out in the middle that kind of roam around, and that's probably why the weights were so good throughout the entire field, was because guys are really, really good at targeting those fish. But for me, I don't like doing that necessarily in a tournament. It's fun when I'm just out there fun fishing, looking to get some bites. But in a tournament, I always get worried that I'm not going to be able to find them again, or that my quality is going to change, which I've looked back at a little bit of the footage now. It seems like some of those guys on live were saying, where did my largemouth go? Where did my largemouth go? They turned into spotted bass the second day. And you probably saw a bunch of flip-flops on the leaderboard too, with guys that ran into those big ones versus guys that didn't that second day.
And you hear about that on Murray too, where people will say, I got to the right point, right time, and I loaded, 25 pounds, but I go back out there and like, where'd they go? It's that would be really nerve wracking if that was my only plan going into an event, betting on I'm going to hit the right school at the right time.
Yeah. How did you handle that, dude? I mean, that alone right there. I mean, you're all chips are in. Yeah, I know you probably had other locations because you said you picked up a couple each day, the bigger ones, and then I guess you had to go find fish after that. Was it reproducing?
Right. So the first morning I saw that school I was telling you all about on the magical spot. I started there and I couldn't catch them. I spent 10, 15 minutes on them, just watching them on scope, and I just couldn't catch them. I couldn't get them to bite. So I went on to the back of the ditch, and on the way into the back, I caught one close to 4, halfway back. And then when I got to the very back, I caught like a 5.5. And then I was like, wow, that's a heck of a start. And then I threw at some others I couldn't catch, spent some time moping around back there. And then I worked back out. And when I got back to the pile, I saw them set up even just a little bit better, but it took me about 15 to 20 minutes And finally, I did get one of them to mess up. And then at that point, when I got that first one to mess up, I think it was a 6 even. It might have been a 6-8 because I caught 2 over 6 that day. Right when I caught that one, another school had moved in from the ditch and pulled up on the other side of the brush pile, and all of those were 3 1/4 pounders, and I caught a couple of those to fill out my limit also. And then after 1 or 2 of those, that was it. That place was done. I worked out the rest of the way of the ditch to the channel, the main lake, and didn't see anything.
Wow.
So I moved on to my backup plan, which was running around on offshore structure.
Yeah.
When you have the juice like that, and it's something that you want to keep in your rotation, but you're talking about an open event with so many boats around, and you said you backed off of it, what is the distance? Are you keeping this within eyesight so you can rotate back in there, or are you gambling, just completely leaving it and somebody else potentially poaching it?
No, so it wasn't on purpose that I left it the first day. I just had other stuff to go. I guess it was on purpose. So I had other places I wanted to go fish. And I felt like when I left it, I could not catch any more of them. Like I felt like I showed them enough different presentations, different angles to where I wasn't going to get another bite. And I really felt like nobody was going to be able to pull in behind me and get another bite either.
Okay.
And then it just happened that the next place I went to was really, really good also, and it was within eyesight. So I got to sit there for an hour and just kind of keep an eye on who actually went in that ditch. And 1 or 2 guys did, but I could tell what they were doing, and it wasn't what I was doing. So I was confident with starting there the second day also.
The juice you found, the brush pile, magic brush pile, you say, was it a man-made brush pile, you believe, or was this one, made by trees falling in and things fall, Mother Nature? There you
go. No, somebody put it there.
Somebody put it there.
It just looks way too perfect, and I didn't see any massive like tree trunk or something like that. So some local around Clarks Hill knows about it, whether they know about it or not. They know about it. So
we all have those magic piles all over Smith Mountain Lake. I know a couple of them myself where they are, but I mean, it's, so many Christmas trees and all this stuff gets dropped in a lake each and every year, and it helps the body of water also. So go ahead, Thomas.
The part of the lake you're at, was it, when you're talking about the ditch, the creek, are you talking about you could throw a baseball across it with, just to get a visual of just kind of the area and the funnels that we're dealing with?
So I would say at the mouth, it did not have land on one side of it. So half of it had like a tree line, like a bank, but the other half on the other side was like a deep point. And so you have a really deep point moving shallow, and then a bank on one side, and then steadily that point, I don't really think it turned into land until it got all the way to the back of the ditch. There might have been like a little island or something that it turned into.
Wow.
So it was like a deep point and then hard shoreline at the mouth, football field, and then it just tapered all the way to the back, which you could, I guess at the back, 200 feet across probably.
Okay. So you had a nice little place that could funnel them in. That's okay. Interesting. Huh.
It's pretty daggone nice.
Yeah, and it's just the fact that, you lucked out where you had that spot right there, so close to your juice to where you could just keep tabs on it. And I'm assuming you said you had a couple of competitors. You could tell, like, okay, they've only been there for a certain amount of time. When you went back, what told you to go back mentally?
So I did not go back either day after I left it.
Okay.
When I left the first day, I went to that second spot, which was just really just a small point, and I have no idea why they were on that point, other than they were just meant to be there and for me to catch them. Because that's really, I guess it just had other good ditches around it, because I couldn't catch them in the other ditches around it. But every time I went over there, it was kind of at an awkward time, around 11 or 10 o'clock, where I feel like maybe they were just kind of cruising that point after they got done busting the herring in the backs, because it was like a little bowl on one side of it, like a little half circle, And then on the other side of it was a deep channel that went into another ditch, which I never caught any quality out of. But on that channel side, it had a little brush. And then on the rest of it, it was just like chunky basketball size rocks, and they would just cruise it. And there was a big school of them on it too. And I caught a 4 and a 6.8 off of that point, as well as like a 3 something. And then at that point I had that 26 pounds with 2 spots basically by whatever time it was. I mean, I really took my time after I made a bad cull and made good cast, and then I caught that even bigger one. And then I was just kind of, I was kind of floating a little bit. I was just like, I don't even really need to go fish any more stuff today. So I just kind of went and, like we were talking about earlier, pull up on places and just look. I would cast some of them, but I was just like, I mean, I've got to have over 4-pounders to cull these small ones out. The second day, I started again in the magic place, only caught 1 in that, which was a 6.2. And then I went to that other place and didn't get a bite. They were impossible to catch, and they weren't grouped up as good either. So then I had to go fish all of my stuff in South Carolina that I found in pre-practice, which was offshore rock and piles and a plethora of things. But
you dropped that weight. What were your thoughts in the hotel room that night?
Don't mess this up. I mean,
yeah, you know,
like your strategy, does it change? Like, I mean, because when you're ahead like that, or you hit a home run like that, it's got to get into your head. And how do you keep those demons quiet while you still got to run this race?
Man, you know, I really don't know. I've never been in the position, at least in a Bassmaster event, to where I was leading, and then to have a 3.5-pound lead. First off, I did not see that coming, so I had no idea that I was going to be in that position. So I was still really in shock a little bit when I got back to the house. And then, you know, I figured if I could just go out there and catch 10 or 11 bites, that I'd be fine. And yes, I was absolutely nervous. But I caught that 6.2 within 30 minutes the second day, and that just took a lot of weight off my shoulders and really let me relax, run my rotation properly in the morning. It didn't end up working out, but then around 11 o'clock, I caught a spotted bass close to 3. And then after that, I was on a roll. I caught like another 6 and then filled out my limit with 3s in South Carolina. And I just got the ball rolling and was feeling.
This event ended up getting shortened, if I remember, just the 2 days, correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you think that 2 day shortening of the just down to 2 days kind of helped you a lot with, you know, just having just a limited amount of lunker bass, you know?
You know, I definitely can't say it didn't help, because I've got the hardware sitting right next to me. So would I've wanted that third day? No. No. Would I say those guys would have caught me on the third day? Well, I don't know that that's necessarily true either, because after the second day, I had a 7-pound lead, and then I know there were still big ones left. Well, now, whether I would have caught them or not, you never know. You know, maybe I would have caught another 6-pounder. Maybe not. It's hard to say.
Well, I mean, this jacks up the pressure cooker that much more, because if you're fishing a 3-day, 4-day, the MLF thing, which is a week and a half or whatever, your mind is mentally like, okay, I have a rough start or whatever. It's a big event, whatever. But it's day 2. It's 2 days. You don't know about tomorrow, and you have such a big lead, and you only have 1. It's a good one, but you don't get your other bite till 11. I mean, I would have mentally, it would have been the screws in the back of my head starting to tight. Even if I had a good one, great. But if it's by 11, 12, I'm like, well, I'm just going to waste this good one plus the lead I have. I'm not going home. Like, it's insane you were able to keep your composure. It's like, we got 1 done. Good. Okay, now we got 2. And you didn't spin out or really try to make any kind of adjustments. You just kept with your strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still really impressed with myself too, because if you told me I would have a lead and not spin out, I would have told you were crazy. I don't know. I think maybe it's just because in practice, well, the first day I had my limit off of 2 places, right? So I had everything else in practice that I didn't even fish. So I think starting with that big one, it was like, okay, I got my big one. And then I had a long day the second day too. I didn't have to check in until 4:15. And so around 10, 11 o'clock, I really, what I did most of the morning was try to force my big fish places to work when they didn't. And so once I started to leave, really is when I started to get more bites, because I had to just abandon them and say, you got to pull the plug because it's not happening here today. And I just had so many places I'd found throughout pre-practice and just other places that I found that week. I felt confident trusting my gut and knowing that those places were dried up and I needed to move.
That's
And then
so
I ran
big.
into them, and then another bite window opened up at 11. And after that, I think once I caught my second one on day 2, I think it had to be something like I caught one out of 5 or out of my next 6 or 7 stops or something. Like it happened really, really quick after I caught my second one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
We're going to transition right here into you're going to the Classic, man.
Speaking of shock.
Yes, the Super Bowl. I mean, how do you feel? I mean,
I feel lonely. I don't know who else is going to be there.
Say you're from Virginia going to the Classic with John. You know, hopefully John Cruz will be there with you, but we'll see how the season goes. But I mean, a Virginian going to the Classic, dude. I mean, we've had a couple of we've had Jeff Luger, we've had Jeff Freeman, had a couple Jeffs, and
is he Virginia?
So
it's a dream come true. It really is, and I don't really think that there's words to describe it, and I don't really think I'll be able to describe it until, if I had to guess, March of 2026, which is probably something like that when the dates are going to be. They could always do a February Classic or maybe a January one. I mean, apparently they like to have Bassmaster likes to have tournaments in January, which I would be fine with. I wouldn't mind it. But I think when I blast off that morning, it will really set in for me. Growing up, fishing the tournaments, and now it being my 3rd year fishing all of the opens, I just wanted so bad to win or to get an opportunity to win one of these, because I know how hard the competition is, and I know how talented the other anglers are. And then when Hank gave me the trophy and said, "Oh, by the way, you're going to the Classic also," it was just like, I don't really know what to say about it. It was real in an aspect that I thought I had my dream in my hand, and then it's like, well, hold on now. There's more to it. So I'm on cloud 9. I can't believe it. I'm so thankful for how the week went, and so thankful to get to live that dream also. Whether I finish first or last, I mean, who doesn't dream about being a part of the Bassmasters Classic?
It's awesome. Congratulations, man. Like I said, what an event. Virginia boy right here going to the 2026. We ain't even done 2025. We're already talking about 2026 Bassmaster Classic. Hopefully you won't be going to Texas. That's all I can tell you, because we're not going to Texas.
Let's go to the Savannah River. I might have a chance at something on the Savannah River.
What'd you say?
I said I might have a chance at maybe a small limit of spotted bass on the Savannah River. Anything but Texas. I'm not good at catching big ones.
All right, guys. Again, Chase, man, we really appreciate you coming on tonight. Thank you and congratulations on the first win of the 2025 season. Guys, like I said, it's a lot more tournaments left to go. We are just starting. Local tournaments are just starting. I'll tell you this right now, Bass Cash tournaments, I paid the deposit today. We will be on Smith Mountain Lake going out of the state park. March the 8th is the very first one of those. I've got some stuff I got to put on the website. Danielle's still out of town. When she gets home, I will get the website updated so you guys can all pre-register. So you'll have the month of February to pre-register, prepay, and get ready for the 2025 Bass Cast tournament season. Chase, man, before you roll out, before we end this bad boy, anybody you want to thank or sponsors, etc.?
Yeah, I would love to thank my title sponsor, Site Mix. They're a great company. They're based out of Atlanta and also Dadeville here close to Auburn. This is their second year with me, and they do phenomenal concrete work, shotcrete, pressure grouting, and they also, all the owners love the outdoors just like all of us. So if you need any of that type of work done, please go give them a check out. And then also Carolot Pet Supply, Greenfish Tackle, Dobbins rods. I caught all my fish pretty much this week on a Dobbins rods. And then just really to everybody who supports me, I really appreciate it. It means the world to me. And Brian, thank you for having me on your show and fishing the DMV. I appreciate it as well.
Yeah, man, you're very, very welcome. And like I said, it is great to have, a Virginia angler, transported Virginia angler, winning the first event of the 2025 season. So congratulations. Thomas, do you have anything before we roll out, man?
Nah, everyone that's listening knows the deal. So.
Oh, yeah, February. This is going to come out Monday morning. And that night, guys, make sure you check out Fishing the DMV live. We'll be back. We don't have Monday Night Football, so we'll be watching live. I watch it anyway. I think your lives are amazing. I'm not going to lie. I love watching the live. And he's got some amazing guests on there as well. And we'll give a little plug for Geek, a little under the weather, but we really do need to get him to 100,000 subs. And I don't want to do a Jerry Lewis telethon or nothing like that. Just dancing people up there on there because you guys will sign up real quick because we're just going to make you or you just all cancel us. But head on over and follow Bass Geek tonight and hit the subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button for all of us, man. Like I said, I mean, you don't have to do anything. You just hit subscribe. Now, it does help you watch, but it's kind of how we kind of get paid. I mean, how we make a little bit of money to pay for this whole entire experience because none of it's free. So become a member of our Patreon. Thomas, I saw a commercial, a advertisement commercial. Your Patreon is about full, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah. I should plug that. I only got 23 member spots left before I shut it down for 2025 season. We do 5 fishing tournaments a year. Plus that, I pay for it out of my own pocket. I think we had $1,700 in cash prizes in the Frostbite Frenzy that's going on right now. I decided to host a winter tournament, and everything's frozen. So that wasn't good. So I extended the date through March since quite literally the Susquehanna River was freaking frozen. Who knew that could possibly happen, but it did. So yeah, go check that on out if you guys want to. And hopefully up here, we actually get some thawed water here. It's going to be a weird pre-spawn spawn this year compared to last year, guys. Because yeah, it was warm last year this time of year, if I remember correctly. So who knows?
Bruce has been sending me some of the photos of his lakes, and they're not huge by any means, but it's a whole lot of ice on his water around here. And even as far, he's like down towards Virginia Beach, and that's an area you really never hear of freezing, especially bodies of water where you can't even put a boat in.
Parts of the bay. I mean, hell, him in Alabama, the palm trees had snow on them for God's sakes this winter. I mean, it was crazy that they got that kind of snow down there. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what that does, if it affects anything going forward with the Opens, the Elites, and MLF. But we shall see.
Chase, everyone, thank you for being a part of a nice show. Again, thank you guys for being a part of Basscast Radio. Have a great week, everyone. And we'll see you all again next week right here on Basscast Radio.